Welcome. I'm Stephen Winnick of the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress. For many years, we've presented the Homegrown Concert Series featuring the best in folk music and dance from around the world. In the year 2020, because of the global pandemic, we shifted to producing an online concert series, which we call Homegrown at Home. So now in 2021, this is our second year of Homegrown at Home concerts. We were very happy this year to team up with the Embassy of Finland to present Ánnámáret, the first Sámi artist that we've presented in our series. Now, one challenge that I have in doing these interviews is pronouncing the names of people from a wide variety of cultures. So rather than introducing Ánnámáret, I may ask her to introduce herself by telling our viewers your name. So please welcome to our series and please tell us what you call yourself.
Hello. Yes, I can represent myself, and I also want to say that I'm really happy to be part of this concert program, and it's really cool also to get to talk a little bit about the music and the background of the music. So, but my name first. Actually, you did quite good job. So
Thank you.
I pronounce it Ánnámáret. So you are totally in the going to the right direction, and that is my given name, and my surname is Näkkäläjärvi-Länsman, and then I have the Sámi name that contains my father and my grandfather, and if you wish, also great grandfather. So that is Jussi Sanma Anna.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And again, welcome and thanks for being with us today. So, we were talking just before we started about the fact that you wore some Sami accessories for the camera. So, could you tell us a little bit about them, about what you're wearing?
Yes, definitely. First of all, this is like the Sami crown, you could say. This is the traditional hat from our Sami costume, and it's made by my aunt. And actually, I got married wearing this. So this
Wow,
was like made for me when I was getting married. So it's a really special
it is beautiful.
accessorize. Yes, and of course, yeah, it is made for me, so you can't buy it from the store.
Right,
So
right.
like you can see my family from this style, how the this how do you call it, like these
The,
bands
yeah.
are are organized in there. So this like there is a lot of cultural meaning. So if someone who knows the tradition, knows the costumes, sees me wearing this hat,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible to tell where I'm from or where my family is from. Yes, and then there are these earrings,
Mm-hmm.
and like these big silver earrings are really popular at the moment in the Sami fashion world. So I also have joined to this this fashion world, and I'm wearing this silver. But this has also this like traditional Sami form from risku, the traditional brush, and this is round, and then there are these small parts that make this sound. Can you hear
Mm-hmm.
it? And the sound is making the bad spirits go away.
Mm-hmm.
So that there is also like a functional meaning in this sound, and these are found also in other jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is this is the traditional brush.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing one, and then when we have the costume on, then we wear like many of those. Or
Wow.
actually, you can decide, because there are no regulations. So like you can decide how you like it. So if you want to wear only one, it's possible, but you can also wear a lot if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually have this necklace. I just wanted to add some color. So um, these pearls I have ordered from Canada, from
Okay.
one Native American candy crafter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's quite cool. And then I put this Sami jewelry there that also has this sound.
Right.
So there are a lot of meanings, even if I'm not wearing the whole costume, just the hat and the jewelry, part of the jewelry.
Very beautiful. And so, I mean, that sort of opens the door to talking a little bit about Sami history and culture. What do you think we need to know about that, about your people's culture and history?
Well, first of all, Sami people are the only indigenous people living in Europe, and our area that we call Sámi covers areas from Russia and from Finland and from Norway and from Sweden. And of course, these colonial borders came after our culture was established, and we don't recognize them that way. Like for instance, my families go to the Norwegian side and to the Finnish side, so we don't have these national borders in that sense. And of course, we have the Sami language, and we have Sami costume tradition, and then we have this traditional livelihoods, and one of them is the reindeer herding, and maybe fishing is another, and hunting are other main livelihoods. And the history is colonial history, because the colonial nations came then to our area and started to rule here. So we have been living, and we are still living under these colonial circumstances. But of course, nowadays we have much more opportunities to live independently and to take care of our culture and language than, for example, 50 years ago. So I think we are going to a good direction, but there is still a lot to do.
Sure. And so the countries that you mentioned, which in which Sápmi exists, have sort of different relationships with the Sami people. And how are things in Finland now? I mean, I know that, for example, your music was featured in the National Independence Day broadcast last year. So there's some recognition for Sami culture now. Is that right?
Yes, I think you are right. I think Sami culture is something that it's really interesting for the majority, and it's really nice and really great that we have more opportunities to tell about our culture and our situation, and about our rights as well. Like what are our human rights, and what should we like? What should be we like getting from the society as an indigenous people, and what is the need of protection of our cultures and languages. So well, like as I said before, the situation is getting better, but there are still some major problems in the Finnish system at the moment. For example, there is the ILO 169 agreement with the United Nations. Finland hasn't signed it, so but Norway, for example, has. So there are some like major human rights issues still going on, even if we are living in 2010.
Yeah.
Oh no, 20, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, so we certainly hope that that things just get better from here. It's good to know that it's better than it was 50 years ago, as you say. One thing that you mentioned was that you ordered some of your beads for your necklace from a Native American person in Canada, and that opens the question of the connection between our indigenous peoples in North America and the Sami people. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's quite magical, actually. I, of course, have heard about it from, for example, Nils Aslak Valkeapää's texts. He's a big artist, multi artist from Sápmi, and he has done a lot of like cooperating with other indigenous peoples, and he has been writing about it. And I have been listening to these stories from him since my childhood. So this was like a matter that I knew, but then I got to experience it actually when I went to Canada, and I was having a concert there, and then there were some indigenous tribes from that area, from Ottawa area, in the same event with me, and then we got to know each other a little bit, and I got to experience their way of thinking and way of thinking about the land and importance of the land and the spirits and so on. So I like actually lived the texts that and stories that I heard in Sámi, like it was true then. And it was magical because it's said that we are like sisters and brothers, and I truly felt that.
And this connection is spiritual, but it's also historical, right? That is, the connection is one of migration ultimately.
Yeah, I could say so, that the indigenous peoples have like the same history in the colonial history. It's of course a little bit different in different like areas in the world, but still the basic thing is the same.
So of course you are primarily a musician, and your music incorporates Sami musical traditions and also other music. So let's begin talking a little bit about Sami music, if you would, and tell us about yoik.
Yoik is the vocal music of Sami people, and actually in our music tradition there are no instruments, or there have been these drums, these like frame drums, but when the missionaries came here, they like saw the connection between the old religion and playing the drum, so they just like took the drums away and burned them and took to the museums in Europe. So this drumming tradition is lost. So the yoik is it's vocal expression, and there are other vocal music styles as well in Sámi, but yoik is the most known. And I think the other vocal music styles are a little bit like yoik, but not yoik actually, and they have different names. So it's maybe easier that we only talk about yoik right now, and because that's my family's heritage also. So that's the most easiest thing. But in yoiking, it's like a special way of thinking. The yoiks are dedicated songs, and that means that the yoiker describes the objective of the yoik with the yoik performance. So for instance, if I would yoik an animal, let's say a bear, I would try to describe the bear with the whole performance, including the melody and the rhythm and the use of lexical words and use of yoik syllables, and giving a lot of feeling to the yoik and describing the yoik. So actually the yoik is the thing you are yoiking. So that is a little bit different than singing of something. So there is this like huge philosophical difference in thinking in yoik. If you compare it to Western songs, maybe if you could say so. And actually this dedicated song thing is also known in some of the Siberian indigenous people. So it's something that is common for indigenous music, I would say. But in yoik there is like short melody line, and that is repeated and repeated again and again. And it's said that yoik doesn't have an start and it doesn't have an end. So it just comes from somewhere, and then it's here, and then it disappears again. So it might sound that it's like simple, but it's not, because even if the melody is like short and maybe it doesn't have a wide range or it's not harmonized, but still the yoiker uses his or her voice really like magically, and does these all kind of improvisations that are part of the culture and are supposed to be done inside this culture, like in this yoiking way. So there is a lot of hidden information also in this how to perform yoik thing.
Yeah, a lot of times in music traditions, when an outsider listens to it, they hear just the outline. They don't really hear the micro variations and improvisations that you're talking about. That's true in a lot of traditional musics, but I think in yoik it would be, very, very much the case that the outline is what, outsiders hear. So it's great to know about what's going on underneath all of that, because I think that's very important to know that it's not as simple as it might sound when you first hear it, that you have to listen for a while and really get inside the song a little bit. So thank you for explaining the yoik a little bit. Now, how did that affect you? Of course, went off and had a music education. So how did your grounding in Sami music affect your music education later?
Yeah, that's interesting. I started with Sami music totally. I started with learning these traditional songs, and I heard it in the radio and in concerts and in my society. So that was like the starting point. But then somehow it was quite popular that time to mix things. And I think it's really popular not right now as well. So I really liked in playing instruments, and somehow when I started to study the clarinet and I got some great teachers and great materials what to play and great music in that side, I just somehow got on that track, and I went to that road, to the classical world. And it was actually quite easy because everything was ready there. There was big schools and good teachers, educated teachers, and there were methods how to teach it, how to learn it, how to practice. And even if I would have liked to learn more of yoik at that time, I think it would have been a lot harder, because there are no institutions that help in this.
Right.
And so that was how I started with the music, with the studying classical music. And I think that this Sami music has always been there, because instrumental music is quite imaginative, and you imagine things when you play, and you get feeling to the playing. And I think it's quite similar with yoiking, because in yoiking you also have a strong feeling and an image what you are yoiking. So I really find a similarity there. And I never even if yoiking was in the background many years, I never forgot it. I was always listening to that, and I actually also yoiked, and I had some concerts with yoik also. But I considered at some point that classical clarinet is my thing. But then I ended up doing just different things.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the Ánnámáret band a little bit, because you hear a little classical music in it and you hear some jazz in it as well, and of course you hear the Sami influence. So how did you start creating this new music?
Yeah, I met this Finnish boat lyra player, jouhikko player, Ilkka. I met him when we were studying in the conservatoire in Tampere in southern Finland. And then we had just some coincidence, and we tried to do combine jouhikko and then yoiking, and that like worked immediately, and somehow these two sounds belonged together, because yoik has this really somehow ancient or archaic sound to my ear, and then this yoiking also has this same character. So it was somehow like match made in heaven. And I have known Ilkka since, and we have done a lot of different things in between. But then at one point, we started to do these yoikko things again, and it was really great. And then I wanted to like really do album with yoiks that I have composed in a traditional style, and of course a little bit modern style as well, but the traditional style was the starting point. So I thought that if I want to add some instruments to this, I really want that yohikko is there. And then we talked with Ilkka that how could we like somehow make it even more full, this our sound, and we didn't want to go to like too arranged to arrange music. So because in yoiking it's really important to have the opportunity to do the improvisations and have some like musically like time-wise freedom. And so and it's of course possible when you have only two, like if you are playing a duo, so you can react and like quite easily. So we wanted to somehow like keep this, and then we thought that that it would be nice to try to put this like organic electronics under this, or to the between this, or something like that. And Ilkka knew this player Turkka Inkilä who does the electronics for us, and it was Ilkka's vision that his creations and compositions would go good with our duo's music. So like that was the story, and of course it's like, because yoiks are like these small fragments repeated again and again. When you are living in this modern world and you want to do concerts and you want to do album, it's like quite natural to add some instruments to that. And the instruments are there maybe to help the yoiker, like to create the environment and the yoiking objectives. So I think it's this was a good way, because I didn't lose my freedom. Of course, in some songs I don't have the freedom, but in many songs I can do whatever I want.
That's great. So one thing that's really interesting, I think, and a lot of people would be interested by it, is that there's a sort of history to yoik and electronica being done together. I mean, this goes back at least about 20 years now. So what can you tell us about that? I mean, how did the electronic music come to Sámi folks?
Yeah, I think it was in the 90s actually when it started. Yeah. I don't know to which artist are you referring to, but I think Vimme is the first one who did it with electronics, and with Tapani Rinne and Rinne Radio. And Vimme has been also explaining this, that he did music with many kinds of bands, like jazz bands, folk music bands, and he always found it like too strict, that you had to decide what you are going to do. That okay, now we have A part 2 times, B part 2 times, and then we go to the C part. Of course, because like this music works like that. And when Vimme started to play with this electronic music band called Rinne Radio, he really liked it, because they created like a musical world, and he could yoik in there as he wanted. And he's of course using a lot of improvisation, a lot more than me. So it's quite natural that he felt like that. But I think Vimme started it, and then also there is this one band called Angelit, and they also had this quite known album with electronics. It's more pop music, but it's still really electronical. So I think that's actually this is nothing new, that you use electronics and yoik, and I don't know why is that. Why do they belong together?
One of my favorite albums is by Ulla Pirtajärvi, who was in Angelit, I think, and then went on her own. And it's very electronic, but it's beautiful yoiking as well. So yeah, such such an interesting history to have that connection.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little about your recordings, because you've got 3 albums, I think, that are available. So tell us a little about how your recording career developed.
Yeah. Well, then after I graduated from the Sibelius Academy, I worked as a clarinist in a wind band in southern Finland, and then after like 1 year or something like that, I started to feel that I want to go back to North, and that was also my dream, like for many years, or for the whole time that I was there. And I really started to feel that I should do that. And then I moved back, and then I started to establish my like artist career as a Sami artist. And actually, at first, I did some like songs in Sami language.
Mm-hmm.
They are like folk songs, maybe you could describe them. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are these yoiking elements also in there. But they were like, they had lyrics, and they were like more like songs and not yoiks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was actually this music that I created. Then it was like somehow music that I really loved, because I really got to like sing with amazing folk musicians from Finland, like Johanna Juhola, Janne Lappalainen, and Ilkka Heinonen. But Ilkka was
Mm-hmm.
playing bass then, not Jouhikko. And
Interesting.
then
Yeah.
Sámi Culture. So I had this like modern folk music ensemble in playing with me. So it was like totally amazing to create this arrangements with them and do concerts with them. And my like lyrics were written from my point of view. So I think it was like a quite interesting, because it was written in Sami language, but then I talked about these ordinary things like love and um, yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
of course some Sami rights and stuff like a little bit more political stuff.
Political. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was like my first 2 albums. But then I started to do this yoik research. And then when I found some recordings from the 60s that were recorded from the area that my families come from,
Mm-hmm.
I like totally got hooked, and I thought that, oh my God, this is something that I want to work with for a longer time. And I did a lot of research and search for more materials and more recordings. And then sometime then I started to do my own yoiks based on this style. And it was like it was like a research to like like investigate how can you do same kind of yoiks in this style, and what is this style, and what makes yoik a yoik.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still trying to do this research, and I think I'm going to do it for rest of my life.
Well, we love to hear that. We here at the Library of Congress, we have that same kind of archive of traditional recordings for both European American groups and our Native American indigenous groups. We hold these recordings, and we just love it when people from the region or from the family even come and hear their own recordings. So, did you find members of your own family on the recordings?
Yes, I found just suddenly I saw a list of archive recordings, and I started to look it like more carefully. And I was like, oh my God, this has to be my great grandfather,
Yeah.
and this has to be my great grandmother. And I like found all of them. I was like amazed, like, oh, they are there. They are not lost. I was so happy. And it's like amazing how much it means. It creates like it's part of your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also that's the spirituality that we think about, and that is in a really important thing. And this family, that they are not just like some ancestors, but they are like they are meaningful in this time as well.
Yeah, and it's one of our favorite things is to be able to share the recordings with, you know, great grandchildren or descendants of any kind, family members. It's just very rewarding part of our job. So I'm glad to hear that that you have had that experience as well, and that you were able to draw from it for your music, because it's really important to have the music carry on through generations. So thanks for telling us about that. So in English, you refer to your latest project as dreamscapes. How is it said in Sami, and what is the concept behind that project?
Yes, dreamscapes is niekuihtuutakat in Sami language, and yeah, it's like dreamscapes. It's like a dream of this old times, and searching for your ancestors, searching for your families, and searching for your roots. And like at some point when I was doing that research, I like started to question myself, like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? How are these meaningful in this time?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean that I find an old yoik? What did I actually find? So it's not like glory all the time. You also have this some kind of a crisis that how do these melodies or recordings belong to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where dreamscapes came from. Like it's like somehow it's the ideal, what we think was how we think that the old times were and how they lived, but actually we don't know, and it might not be that romantic, this life at that time. So like you have to remember that those recordings, they are just like a glimpse of that culture, and you have to like remember to think about the background as well, what's behind there, and then create your own like sense of understanding about of them somehow. And there in dreamscapes there are a lot of different yoiks, but many of them actually are about this fighting ancestors and carrying how the generations carry the same things even if they don't know, and stuff like that. So they are really abstract. So this is not traditional actually, because in tradition we yoik animals and we yoik people, persons, but in my yoiks I have these abstract feelings and images that I'm yoiking.
Interesting. So another collaboration that you've done recently was with a rap artist. What kind of connections can we draw between yoik and rap, which there seem to be some similarities there too?
Yeah, maybe rap is actually quite popular here in Sami popular music, and the rap scene started somewhere in 2005, something like that, around there. And I think it's really great that we have these rap artists, because they really do a lot of work for the language and how to keep the language rich, and teach the language to the young generations, because rap music is popular of course between the younger people as well. So it's really important what they do. And this rap artist Ailu Valle that I got to collaborate with, he's really a master with words, and he has a really rich Sami language. So it was so great, and he wrote this beautiful lyrics for my Johtit Ain, as We Still Migrate song that is also in the same Dreamscapes album. And you can find actually the lyrics if you're interested from my webpage. So Ailu told the idea of Dreamscapes with his own words in this song. So it was really like fascinating, and a wow effect for me to realize that, oh my God, there is a person who understands what I mean with this music, with the whole album, and he wrote it in one song. But in rap music also, you can improvise. So that's similar with yoik, because the yoiker improvises with the lyrics. There are no like set lyrics that you are supposed to use, but you can yoik with those words you like. So I think maybe rap music is family with yoik.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned the language, because we haven't talked about that very much. But of course, Sami, like many indigenous languages here in the U.S., has gone through problems of colonialization and the loss of language. So both yoik and rap can be methods of preserving language. Did you find a lot of difference when you were listening to those old recordings? Has the Sami language changed a little since they were recorded?
Oh yeah, the yoikers have so beautiful dialects, and really like beautiful vocabulary. They use really beautiful words, and they have this ability to put the words to the yoiks in a beautiful way, and they use really like beautiful language, like these images, like they describe things with not actually saying the thing, but describing with other words, and the lyrics have a lot of hidden meanings and everything. So it's a world that I really need to investigate more and try to understand how do they form the lexical words, the lyrics in these yoiks.
So it's a whole different approach to language maybe than in modern songwriting and in rap. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely is. They are like using different. They are some yoikers are somehow in the different stage than for example now when I'm talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that you had gone south to do your music education and play in some bands down there, and then you went back north, and you're living now in Sápmi. You're more or less among a reindeer herding community. Is that right now?
Yeah, I'm married to a reindeer herder, and this is a family business, so everybody are involved, wives and children as well.
Yeah.
So we are all there.
And how does that sort of fit into the economy, the modern economy that is going on in both Sápmi and in the modern countries, Finland and Norway and so forth?
Yeah, reindeer herding has, of course, become part of the economical system. So, for example, my husband and with his brother, they have a firm. How to say it? They make their own reindeer products. And then they sell it to consumers. So that is a way how you can get like a little bit better living from the reindeer meat. But it's tough work because you have to of course be there taking care of the reindeer, and then you have this business. So it's like you have to put these two worlds together. And this Sápmi is a really big area, so of course the reindeer herding is different in different kind of parts of Sápmi. And in this area, it's organized this way that it's possible to sell a lot of reindeer meat and get an income from that. So if you work hard, and of course, if you have like the environment lets you, like the sorry, I can't find the word.
That's we should say how impressive your English is. I know it's got to be at least your third or fourth language. So,
well, thanks. Well, you know this when the temperature goes up. This phenomenon. What's that? That's called the
well, people call it global warming, but
Global warming,
yeah,
exactly.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I guess
Like
climate change is a
climate
more
change, yes,
neutral
that's the
term.
word.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So like the climate change is affecting a lot.
Hmm.
It's the environment is changing, and reindeer is of course not changing that fast.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like it worries us that
yeah,
are we able to live from the reindeer in the future, because the environment is changing so fast. At the moment it's okay, but we can see it already now that the winters are getting so much shorter
yeah,
and also warmer. So the climate change is here.
yeah, yeah. And I share your worry about the not just the reindeer herding, but so many things in the north are going to change faster than they will in other places. And so, yeah, so let's hope that we get it together globally and manage to do something about this, because it's yeah, that's a big worry. Um, one thing that has got to be very different now as well with for people living in Sapmi is the existence of technologies of communication like we're using right now. How does that change the possibilities for an artist living where you do?
I think it's getting much easier, and the possibilities are a lot more. And I mean, I do my music here, and it's really easy to share it with other musicians and do collaborations and work before the concerts or before going to the studio separately. And of course, it's not to work alone. No, it's not nice to work alone all the time.
Right.
But it's great to see other people, and it's great to have concerts. But it's really great thing that this modern technology gives this opportunity, because I think that I'm living here in Nuorgam, and this is the northernmost place in the European Union.
Yeah.
So it's and there are 200 people in my village. So I'm not like meeting other musicians every day or doing
Yeah.
concerts even every month here. So I have to travel a lot. But when I have this ability to, like, I have this possibility to communicate through this computer and telephone. So it's like making my life a lot easier.
Yeah. So one thing we didn't talk about at all yet is the pandemic itself and how it might have affected, you know, I mean, obviously all of Europe, but how did it affect people in Sapmi?
I guess the same way.
Hmm.
The big thing here is the border between Finland and Norway. Of course, we are used to go over the border, like in
Yeah,
our everyday lives. Like
yeah,
people live in Finland and then they go to Norway and work there,
yeah,
or we go to shop, or Norwegian people comes to shop to this side.
yeah,
But the border has been closed, and it has been really hard to get to the other side at some points at times. So that was really like somehow not nice. And
yeah,
it was also because we didn't have corona here. Like we didn't have actually the
yeah,
pandemic here, because we don't have like this big like we have to be at the same place. We are not at
right.
the same. We are at home and we are in the tundra.
Yeah,
And if there are 200 people living in the village, then it's like not that major like
yeah,
like possibility to meet so many people. But yeah, so we felt that it was wrong to close the border, even if we don't have corona here.
yeah,
But in other ways, like in the ordinary day, we have been quite okay. Of course, the first spring was a little bit a shock, and the schools were closed. But after that, life has been quite normal. We have had school open. My kids have been in school, and also the kindergarten has been open. And but of course, I don't have any gigs, and I'm not traveling.
yeah,
So that's maybe different, and my family is loving it.
yeah. Yeah, there are always trade-offs, of course.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting what you say about the border closing, because it shows that even when the the political state isn't attempting to be colonial. They're not really trying to oppress anyone. Decisions that are made on a national level for national purposes may not be that the best decisions for local communities, and you were sort of caught in that moment there. So it's an interesting sort of lesson, I guess, for countries to think about all of their people and not just the most populous places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're so right. Yeah.
So given that we're now communicating this way and over the internet, what would you most like to say to the world through this interview, do you think? Big question.
I think it's important to cherish different kind of cultures and let us be what we are. And it's yeah, I think that is that we should love each other as we are, and try to like accept different kind of people. I think that's really important.
Well, thank you so much, Ánnámáret. We love you. We loved your concert, and we want all of our viewers to, of course, watch this interview and hear the important things that Ánnámáret had to say about her music, but also go and watch the concert and enjoy the wonderful music that she brought to us. So, Ánnámáret, one more time, thank you so much for doing this interview and for doing a concert in the Homegrown Concert Series.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.